Now, having said all of that, we start with the positives there, okay? You will be left with a bleep ton of what-ifs in this game for Arizona State. The first and foremost, I mean, the thing that above the targeting call, above anything else, you got the game down to 4th and 13. You just need a stop. And that defense, it's hard to criticize them too much. Let me check one thing here. Brian Ward. That's right. I was trying to think of the defensive coordinator. Brian Ward's unit did a great job. He did a great job throughout much of this game. I did not love bringing the heat there on Quinn Ewers on that 4th and 13, and especially when they show the pressure and then Texas stops and like checks into something. I mean, I'd love to see being able to back out of that and change it up a little bit because Texas protected it well. And the second that happened, you're like, this is going to be trouble. So Ewers had time to stand back there and fling a really nice ball to the back of the end zone. And from that point on, it's basically over. It's over there. Texas scores on their first offensive possession after that. And then, yeah, you could just feel the momentum totally slide. But they had it. I mean, you had the game down to that. That's all it took. That is, I don't know. I mean, Arizona State fans, I'm sure, have some mixed emotions, but that would be a hard one to sleep with tonight, that you had that game down to that after all that happened, after the targeting call, the 2 missed field goals, everything that set you up in that position. Still kind of makes me want to vomit right now, and I am not an Arizona State fan. There's also, the special teams mistakes. You give up a punt return touchdown, and I did see Chris Kaplan, who was Chris Catman, who is right here, I believe. Chris Cartman. He had someone showing some video where it looked like there was possibly an illegal block on that play that didn't get called. So, I don't know. We'll see. But either way, special teams was rough. They give up that. They missed a couple of field goals, which has been an adventure all season for Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham going into the half said they were just getting destroyed on special teams. Yeah, that was definitely a huge factor in the game. Texas whipped them there, and in a game where it goes to double overtime, stuff like that in the margins means a lot. I would also point out another play that really stands out to me is the safety. If that ball bounces anywhere else, it's going to be a touchdown. But instead, Quinn Ewers, credit to him for being alert, but that ball just pops instead of bouncing around where there were like 6 Arizona State players ready to try and pounce on that thing, and Texas would have been really outnumbered. It's right back to Quinn Ewers, turns into a safety. They got a field goal on the ensuing drive, so that winds up costing you 2 points. But again, you're going to overtime, right? You're going to overtime. So those were huge points, the way that everything went there. And then the targeting call, okay? So we can talk about this targeting call here at the end of the game. I've got to be careful here because I don't love the general tone of what we have in college football and just sports. It's not just college football. It's the NFL as well, because the example that I'm about to use is from the NFL. So I am a Chiefs fan. Have been my entire life before any of you come after me. All right. Grew up in Kansas City, moved there in the year 2000, lived in Kansas my entire life. I have been a Chiefs fan back since the days I was going to like Steve Bono Chiefs games back in the day. Okay. So I deserve Patrick Mahomes and everything that is happening. And it gets very annoying every single week to, the fix is in. Here's the Chiefs. You can show every stat about how much Juwan Taylor and the Chiefs offense gets penalized every single week. No, the fix is in. It's what we do now. If it doesn't go your way, you complain. Not just in sports, by the way, all aspects of American life these days. You just complain it's fixed, it's rigged, whatever. So I do not want to be the fix is in, everything's rigged guy. Do I really think, as I jokingly tweeted, that Greg Sankey was up in the replay booth making the final call, pointing at those guys like, hey, you're not going to hit Texas up with a targeting penalty when they're about to get the ball back with a minute left. And if this is targeting, it's going to be a first down right on the edge of field goal range for Arizona State, and they could run a couple plays and then kick the game-winning field goal. You're not about to do that to us here. Does it feel like, with the way everybody acts in college football right now, that something like that could be plausible? I mean, in your real conspiratorial heart of hearts, I suppose yes. But in reality, no, I do not think that happened. Now, what do I think was more likely that could have been going on right there? I will get to that actually in just a moment, because first we need to discuss the actual merits of the call. I mean, it's quite clear that there is definite helmet-to-helmet contact. I'm just going to turn to Terry McAulay, who is a longtime NFL official, officiating expert, who was very vocal on Twitter about his thoughts here, and I will turn it over to him as to what he thought about the call. It certainly seemed like helmet-to-helmet, and we just get a lot of these days. If there is helmet-to-helmet contact, virtually no matter what else is happening, you're going to get that call more often than not. So Terry McAulay says, to be clear, he took aim at an opponent for purposes of attacking with forcible contact that goes beyond making a legal tackle. He led with his head. He made forcible contact to the head neck area of a defenseless receiver using his helmet. That's the rule. After initially saying clearly a targeting foul. There was more. He was still going back and forth with some folks. I've got that in a different tab. So anyway, Terry McAulay, here's the other one. Okay. So for people that were fighting back with him, if you're going to argue back with McAulay on that, he says, I've seen dozens of comments from people who think there is no indicator. So in the rule book here, it says targeting means that a player takes aim at an opponent for purposes of attacking with forcible contact. Some indicators of targeting include, but are not limited to, launch, leaving your feet to attack an opponent, crouch, followed by an upward and forward thrust, leading with the helmet, or lowering the head before attacking. And McAulay is saying leading with the helmet is one of the indicators, and that's exactly what he did. So I suppose you can say that is up for interpretation, but this is the interpretation of somebody who has a lot of experience doing it in Terry McAulay, and he definitely thought that it was targeting. My thought was more just like, I mean, admittedly, I don't know as much ball when it comes to targeting and officiating as Terry McAulay, but I just thought, dude, I mean, I feel like we see that almost every single week in college football, like a hit like that might seem a little bit more innocuous at first, especially if it then winds up knocking the dude out, which it did, and we're concerned about player safety and eliminating all this helmet-to-helmet contact. It seems like more often than not, for sure, you see that get called. And more, that's the way that the sport is moving, whether you agree or disagree. That just felt very in line with what you see very often in college football as far as targeting goes. They review it. It turns into, nope, we didn't see it. No targeting. Unbelievable and very predictable that you would see a call like that in college football, a sport that is always so dominated by big brands and so heavily slanted toward big brands, virtually at all costs, a beauty pageant of a sport, all these things that we kind of know and love, but also hate, have a love-hate relationship with. At least I do. It's a big part of the sport. And you're like, yeah, of course that happens there in that spot. Again, I am not sitting here telling you I believe that this is some kind of legitimate fix. There's no tinfoil hat that I have on right now. Okay, you don't need to worry about any of that. But what I do think could have happened is that if you're looking at it like, man, that seems awfully close, and in a lot of situations, we might have to call that, kind of be forced to call that. But you'd be looking around officials like, if it's that close and it's going to be this much of like a deciding factor in a game, I mean, that's literally a swing from Texas has a very good chance to get off a field goal to win the game, which they did, versus Arizona State can just run out the clock basically and try a field goal, which we'll see how that goes, but would have at least been an opportunity for it and not had to play defense then against Texas. Like, that is a massive swing. And I feel like sometimes, like an official in a basketball game might swallow the whistle on a final play, allow a little bit more contact to go. See, like Kansas, West Virginia, and Allen Fieldhouse, for instance. Swallow the whistle on that last play. It felt kind of like that, where it's like, let's just swallow the whistle here. Let's not let a targeting call be the deciding factor in a game like this at the end. I would think that is a more likely type of scenario, whether that was actually vocalized or it's just in the back of your mind, kind of subconsciously there. One or the other, that feels to me like the more logical, likely explanation of what was going on there, which is very maddening. It's maddening. I saw that tweet out there from a couple of folks on Twitter, like, hey, let's not decide games on a targeting call. Like, no, let's officiate the sport the way that it has been officiated all year and is supposed to be officiated, especially when the whole reason that rule is in there is because of player safety. So if there's ever a time where you should follow something by the letter of the law and to a T, no matter what time it occurs during a game, it's probably a player safety one, right? That would be the time to do it. So I don't know. That sure seemed to make a lot of sense to me. Either way, you still had some out there offering that up. I've seen some Texas fans arguing back. They also have referenced the call that was reviewed for targeting, did not get called targeting on Arizona State. But to me, that was very obviously like shoulder to shoulder. It was close. It was like when you look at it first live, it almost looked like he hit the head. But if you get the slow-mo view, it was definitely more shoulder to shoulder and a really good hit. That was on the interception that Quinn Ewers threw, which was a big part of the Arizona State comeback. So I would just tell you, to me, it was pretty clear that second one was targeting, first one was not. Didn't work out that way. Arizona State, though, has nobody to blame but themselves. Make the stop on 4th and 13. Don't have a disaster of a game on special teams. And you're probably sitting here talking about a matchup with Ohio State. And we would all be sitting here thinking how amazing that is. Okay.